CBSE Board, Class 9, Chapter 8, History, Part 16, audio by Renee Matthew. So let's get started with some of the activities and questions given by the end of the chapter. We have come to the end of the whole chapter and all the points were covered in all these screenshots. In all the slides that were prepared. Extra points were given through the lectures also. Please make sure that you listen repeatedly to it so that you get all the points in your mind. Now, some of the practical questions are there. Let's begin with the activity question. Why is it called as an activity question? Because you have to analyze some of the question and write based on what you really think about it. For example, the first question that is given by the end of the text. Imagine you are the 14-year-old child of a trader. Write a paragraph on what you feel about the sumptuary laws in France. It is same as asking what were the sumptuary laws in France, or just explain on it. The sumptuary laws in France are aimed at. It was aimed at controlling the inferior complex which the people belonging to the lower parts of the society had, because always more importance was given to the aristocratic family. Aristocracy means people who belong to the upper classes or the noble families. And these laws also prevented individuals, especially from the lower strata of the society, to restrict on using certain clothes, consuming food, beverages, and also going for hunting game. So it was both a merit and a demerit for them. It was restricting some of the things that the people were doing in the society. So we cannot say that it was completely for the people who were belonging to the lower classes, because when they restricted, it was affecting them, right? Only when it affected them, they started opposing whatever the authorities or the upper classes were telling. We saw that sumptuary laws always restricted. So when restrictions were brought about, it affected the poor people more. These laws have been in existence in France for 500 years. Very important point. They do not want us to enjoy our lives even if we have the money to do so. So when you have restrictions, they had regional codes. If you really desired to wear a particular cloth, it was not allowed. Only people of certain places could wear certain clothes. Those were the restrictions. This has also reduced our customers, as we are able to sell the good things to only a limited number of people. So only people who are from the upper classes benefited from everything. That was the main point. So now my father is trying to sell the expensive goods in other European countries by exporting them. So you have to write in the first person narrative. You may think why it is my and I and all that. You are the only child of a trader. So now you're trying to say that we are trying to sell some expensive good in other European countries by exporting them, and it is like it is taking away the rights of the people belonging to the lower classes also, and what it was actually doing in all those times. So write it as if you are actually living in that particular period and you are expressing your opinion but with more of facts. It is very different from the essay writing or autobiography that you write in English. You have to give more of facts and information. That is what they'll be looking for. Okay, the next question under activity session. Can you think of any expectations of proper and improper dress which exist today? Give examples of two forms of clothing which would be considered disrespectful in certain places but acceptable in others. So, basically, all the clothes are good, but it becomes inappropriate, it becomes disrespectful, it becomes a disgrace only when you wear it for an occasion which will go beyond the expectations or which will not meet the expectations, right? So what I'm trying to say is there are some key words in the answer which is given there. The quality and applicability of dresses on various occasions and at various locations make them acceptable or disrespectful. This point was stressed when we started the audio for the chapter, for the complete chapter where I specifically told that a dress becomes disrespectful when you wear the wrong thing, when you make the wrong choice. For example, if you wear a party attire to an office where you're expected to wear a proper formal dress, it is disrespectful. You are disrespecting the whole panel of board members who is sitting in front of you for interviewing you. You are disrespecting yourself also. So there are so many things which is a part of the whole fact. So quality and applicability, the way you apply the clothes for appropriate occasions, for specific locations, everything matters. You are not expected to wear jeans and go for a formal interview, but you can wear jeans for a picnic or a party or any other. It's a casual wear. So if you don't choose clothes, like for example, even a formal wear, if you wear a formal wear and go for a party, everybody will laugh at you. So it is like that. It is the occasion and the location and the applicability which decides whether a dress is respectful or disrespectful. Our expectations of a dress would be that it should be comfortable and not hampering movement. This is a very important point. Cover the body adequately so it does not appear indecent, and that it should cover us against any adverse weather conditions like intense heat, freezing cold, and so on. So why do people wear clothes? To protect them, right? Especially from the weather conditions. So that is the basic thing that you have been learning in social science from a very low class. Now, people may say that, like, suppose they go for an interview in jeans, and I have heard some people saying, it is for my comfortability that I'm wearing these jeans. I'm not comfortable in formals. No, that is not the expected answer. You are expected to be in a formal dress because it is a formal occasion. So people wear or choose a particular dress because it is comfortable for them. Yes, but the applicability is also a great matter. And that is why a lot of unnecessary debates we can see between people in the society itself. Even if you switch on the media, you have a lot of debates where people just argue saying that this is something I'm comfortable with. But what about the applicability? What about the quality that you are projecting on yourself? Think about it. All right. So next part of the question is asking you to give two examples. So it can be anything. Forms of clothing which may be considered acceptable or disrespectful in different situations can be as follows. So in this text, they have repeatedly mentioned the pajamas, the kurta. So here I've given an example like that, where if you wear a pajama or kurta to an office, it will be like offending, where a Western style dress or formal dress is expected. Okay. So apart from that, you can also write a lawyer is expected to dress in the black and white advocate attire or the uniform. And if you wear instead of that jeans and go to the courtroom to really support or oppose your candidate or customer, then it becomes offensive, right? You're not expected to be there like that. So that is the most important part. You can give any examples, and they have asked for two examples. Now it is time for questions. Most of the questions are directly from the textbook, but what really matters is I have seen students studying everything from the textbook, but they don't know what to apply where. So read the question twice, understand what is the requirement, and then answer, so that you don't write anything which is unexpected, because CBSE particularly stresses on the points. They want the correct points, and you should answer to the point only, nothing extra. If they ask you to explain, you can give a little bit of description and explanation, but otherwise it is always to the point. So what is expected, you should know. So let's get started. There are 7 questions given at the end of the textbook. So let's see that. The first question: explain the reasons for the changes in clothing patterns and materials in the 18th century. So why there were a lot of changes in the dressing pattern in the 18th century? There are 3 points given there. You have to describe on it if it is a longer question answer. Changes in clothing patterns and materials in the 18th century, it took place when? It began in the French Revolution, because people were forced to buy things which they didn't like, and they were forced to abide by the sumptuary laws. So because of the restrictions, everything started in the French or during the French Revolution. Then second point is, due to colonialism, different cultures came into contact with each other, and there was a great influence. That is at particular point. So even in India, I told you when I was explaining that because of the influence of the foreigners, it's not necessary that they have to tell you, please follow what we are wearing. But some Indians were automatically influenced by what they wore and they just copied it. So it is because different cultures are coming together. We were not used to such a culture. Though it was funny in the beginning, when they started interacting, it became an influence later and people adopted, and even now they are adopting it and even adapting to it. The third point is trade with India brought the beautiful and easy to maintain Indian chintzes within the reach of Europeans. So there was an exchange which is happening there. We copied them and they took some materials or ideas from us, and they were really clever to use them for their profit. So you can write so many points. These are not the only points, but when it's a short answer, these are the main basic points. What were the sumptuary laws in France? So all the points which come under the sumptuary laws are covered here. So in medieval Europe, dress codes were sometimes imposed upon members of different layers. I told you there was layering which happened in the society in those days through actual laws. Then second point is again about the sumptuary laws which began in 1294, and then how it went on. That also you can write. Then the third point is very important. What the sumptuary law did, that also you can write. The definition is given there. In France, the items of clothing a person could purchase per year was regulated not only by income, but also by social rank. So when social rank became a problem, the income was not very prominent, but later people were allowed, we saw that people were allowed to wear anything later, right? And we saw how the upper class women really collaborated and mingled with people from the lower classes, and then everybody looks similar. Do you remember that point where everybody looks similar? Then that was a problem, and people from lower classes did not have money to buy these frills and gaudy dresses which the upper classes wore. So that was a problem later. So it is by social rank and money which actually decided what the people could buy. So now it was more of social rank when sumptuary laws were imposed. Only royalty, that is the ruling class, could wear expensive material like fur or silk. Very important point. The lower classes would not clothe themselves with materials that were associated with the aristocracy. So later, the upper classes did not like the lower classes looking similar to them, because everybody was the same. They wanted some distinction, and was like very selfish for them to say that, oh, everybody should look different. So by looking at a person, you could say to which social class or rank the person belonged to. The next question. Give any two examples of the ways in which European dress codes were different from Indian dress code. Lot of differences you can cite from this particular chapter. So only two examples are given there. So this is something which you are very familiar with. One is about the hat and why the Europeans wore hat. Right? It is like a sign of respect. Even for us, the turbans were a sign of respect. It was a symbol of respect and could not be removed at will. When you go to meet a person, a dignitary, you have to wear the turban. You need not take it. But hat, for the Europeans, when you go in front of the superior, you have to take it off and just pay the respect. That is the difference. Then the dress code in Europe was influenced by a person's economic and social status. The dress code in India was influenced and followed by the caste system. So in Europe, it was by the social status, and here it is particularly the caste system. You may ask, caste is also part of social system, but it was particularly the caste system. The other one was like a general idea. Here it is a particular idea. Okay. The next question. In 1805, a British official, Benjamin Heen, listed the manufacturers of Bangalore, which included the following. So look at the four materials given there. Women's cloth of different musters and names, coarse chintz, muslins, silk cloth. Of this list, which kind of cloth would have definitely fallen out of use in the early 1900s and why? So they are checking whether you understood which cloth was used when and which was prohibited. All right. So the answer is given there. So East India Company entered India in 1800s with by exporting a lot of silk cloth, coarse chintz and muslin to England. This was something which they did. They took everything from India and exported to England. As such, clothes were not available in England or even in Europe. They were so fascinated by the silk. Due to this, such cloth material became very expensive in India because foreigners are demanding it. So it became expensive inside India itself. And so they fell out of use because the common people could not buy. Indians could not buy. It is only like we were satisfying the Europeans. They bought it for a price and they took it, exported it to their place. And it fell out of use in India because it was becoming very expensive as it was in high demand. Also, Western clothes were influencing the men in Indian society and they were adopting to the mill-made clothes quickly. So specifically, men were getting influenced, getting used to the mill-made Western clothes. This led to reduction in use in silk, coarse chintz and muslin. So these three materials are very important. They fell out of use. One is because it is very difficult to maintain and retain it, but main point is that it fell out of use because it was under great demand by the East India Company. Suggest reasons why women in 19th century India were obliged to continue wearing traditional Indian dress even when men switched over to more convenient Western clothing. What does this show about the position of women in society? You can really write long answers for this. So one particular thing is women were subordinate in those days in India, not only in India but all over the world. But India, it is because the society was a patriarchal society where it was dominated by the male citizens of India, or it was a male dominated society where women were just expected to stay at home, cook, look after the family, look after the household chores and all that. So they were expected to wear or dress in traditional attire to be examples for others. So only men were expected and also allowed, even allowed, you can use that word allowed, to change, reform, or even transform into this Western clothes. So they were the ones who got influenced and only they were allowed to do so. So there are 2 points given there. You can write more for this question. Next question. Winston Churchill described Mahatma Gandhi as a seditious Middle Temple lawyer, now posing as a half-naked fakir. What provokes such a comment and what does it tell you about the symbolic strength of Mahatma Gandhi's dress? So if you notice, this particular point here in the question is not directly given in your textbook, but don't panic. With all the points that you have read in this particular chapter under Mahatma Gandhi, you can frame the answer. So what is it? So he was a person who really wasn't happy with the way the poor Indians dressed, and he also abandoned his Western clothes when he came to South Africa from London. He started thinking about it. So that is one point. Another thing is he wore short dhoti without a shirt, and he even went to the Round Table Conference. He protested, saying that being unsuitable is a greatest national protest, because his aim was to throw away the foreigners. So that is one way of protesting. That is one way of not cooperating with the foreigners instead of simply burning everything and damaging everything. He wanted to identify himself with the poor common man of India, identify himself with the poor man, to support Swadeshi movement and encourage boycott of British goods, to show resistance. So he said resistance and also sustainability, independence, all these things he preached on, or that was his principles. Resistance, sustainability, and also being independent, being reliable. So remember these two words, reliability and also resistance. Discarding of Western clothing and adoption of the simple dhoti and sometimes a chadar served as a symbolic weapon against British rule. This is what I told you earlier, that he always wanted to show that he was resisting the foreign rule or whatever they brought in. And we also read that whatever materials were produced by the Britishers was of quality, and it was very difficult to compete with them because they had machines and they had so much of resources and sources to manufacture at a cheap rate, and we were not even in a position to compete with them. But still, in spite of that, because of reliability, because of resistance, and all these principles of the national leaders, we succeeded in overpowering and overthrowing them. The last question: why did Mahatma Gandhi's dream of clothing the nation in khadi appeal only to some sections of Indians, or why it was like a failure? So that was because so many points are there, but only 4 points are given here. So, one thing is, many people were really attracted to the Western dress style. So, examples are Motilal Nehru, Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And then many Dalits also, they were very fascinated by the Western style of dressing, and they adopted it quickly. They were the ones who got influenced and they wanted to dress like the upper caste. Then the women of the Shanar caste, and that is a very practical reason, because the Nair, do you remember that episode where the Nair women and Nair people literally tore off their clothes in public places? So they also were fascinated, and they also started experimenting and wearing Western clothes and did not favor khadi. Then khadi was expensive and the poor could not afford. Do you remember a woman writing a letter to Mahatma Gandhi saying, "We cannot purchase 9 yards of khadi because we are really poor." So it is a practical reason. Then khadi was usually white, and in India, white clothes were worn when there is a death. So that is a custom of India. So usually now it is like we get different colored khadi, but the actual one is like it is an off-white color. It is white in color, and white is worn when there is a death in the place. Widows also wear white saris, and the dead body is covered with a white cloth. So, because of all these reasons, it was not a good sign to wear white always, and because of that, khadi fell out of place and it lost its popularity, and many people were not willing to wear the khadi. So, these were some of the reasons. And if it is for a longer answer, you can definitely develop on these points and write a little more so that your answer is complete and it gives an overall image of your understanding of this text.